Welcome to Troubleshooting Innovation, a commercial baking podcast, sponsored by Parado's Sunset Glaze, a plant-based egg wash alternative for today's industrial baker. I'm your host, Joanie Spencer, Editor-in-Chief of Commercial Baking. In this season, I'm speaking with Richard Charpentier, Master Baker, Bakery Expert, and President at Baking Innovation, and we are discussing the technical aspects of creating high-quality, premium baked goods on a commercial scale. In this episode, we are taking a look at the demand and opportunities for premium baked goods in today's market. Hi, Richard. Thanks so much for joining me again.
Hey, Joanie. Good to be here. How are you today?
I am doing great. I'm excited about this one because, as I mentioned in last week's episode, I feel pretty strongly that there's a great opportunity for commercial bakers to create premium items and be profitable. So I'm excited to dive into this with you.
Same here. That's favorite subjects of mine, and how to bring quality and make premium in the bakery world. And thank you for having me.
Awesome. Okay, so let's jump in. You have been in this industry for a long time. I'm interested in your vast experience. How have you seen consumer preferences evolve when it comes to demand for premium baked goods? Like, do you see an ebb and flow for demand over time? Are there certain factors that come into play, like demographics or geography, things like that? How do you see sort of the landscape of the market when it comes to demand for premium?
That's a great point. And I think in recent years, there's been a growing demand where I live in Philadelphia for locally produced high quality breads and baked goods. I see consumers are increasingly interested in supporting small businesses and seeking out unique, experience. Again, going back to what we talked last week on premium, and the consumers are looking for those artisanal type of products that are made with high quality ingredients and again, traditional production methods. There's a business here that sells pickles, and they started right around the COVID, and now people love their homemade pickles. So we're going back sort of that artisanal thing. I think personally, it's a trend that is similar to me to the craft beer movement, where consumers are seeking out local brewed and unique beers with distinctive flavors. As a side note, in my travel years ago, I met a gentleman who was almost ready to retire from the brewing industry, and he said, if you want to see the trend of the bakery, he said, look at the brewing industry. And if you look at the pattern, it's true. There was a time in the 1980s where Budweiser and Pabst were the beers. And all of a sudden you have like Sam Adams and little local breweries. And now if you look in any town in America, well, almost any town, any states in America, you always have breweries as a popular place. And they're charging $5, $6, up to $10 for local brews. And similarly, it shows the trends that consumers are willing to spend more if they think it's premium. In addition, there's a big demand for better for you bread options. We're seeing the sourdough has been popular. COVID sort of revived the whole thing, and people were baking at home. But I see bakeries here in Philadelphia, local bakeries where they make their sourdough and they put everything there. And if once everything is sold out, they close shop.
Yeah.
But they're selling for $10, $12, $15 a loaf of bread, similar to the beer industry. And I'm like, wait a minute. And then they close shop and like, okay, we've done what we've done. Because consumers today are really more, in my opinion, health conscious than ever before since the COVID, and looking for things that are made with organic whole grains, maybe, or natural ingredients, no additives or preservatives. So they're starting to separate how they connect. And I think a big driver for that, I was on a conference about a couple of weeks ago where we're talking about the younger generation. I have, 3 children, and they all fall into what we call today the Gen Z. And that's interesting because when I talk to them, they're very interested in quality and authenticity. They are willing, even though my son is 21, he has a disposable income, they're willing to pay more for premium products as long as it meets their standards. And that present to me, that's a great opportunity for bakers to develop and market premium breads and baked goods to meet that demand on this growing consumer segment. And I heard that by 2030, the Gen Z population is going to be the most dominant consumer group. So that's why it's important to know. And as your last point about geography, whether or not geography comes into play, I think certainly. I think geography can play a role in the demand for premium baked goods. Consumers in certain regions or cities in the U.S. may have specific preferences for certain types of breads and baked goods. It's based on sort of local tradition, cultural heritage, availability of certain ingredients. And I think similar to I've worked, in my past that making barbecue sauces for CPG brands, but it's the same thing. I remember learning that a barbecue in Kansas is different in Texas versus the East Coast. So it's preferences. So I think geography will play a role in terms of what people want and their preferences.
Yeah, for sure. And, I'm in Kansas City, so I can say with 100% certainty that there is a difference in barbecue between Kansas City and Texas. But on that note, though, I think that you're right with the geography, the preferences for the experience that you get based on where certain products come from or where they're made. And using the beer analogy, Sam Adams, like you said, used to be a local craft beer. And now you can find Sam Adams on tap in any bar in the country. And I think that just like you said, that bakery trends sort of follow the brewing industry. There is that trend where Americans really love a hometown hero. And so while there's a product that might be distinctive to a region, there's still opportunity for the interest to grow outside of that region. So that premium, again, like we talked about last week, premium isn't solely for the artisan baker. Premium can be on a commercial scale. And so I think, Dave's Killer Bread, for example, that it was in the Pacific Northwest, and it's such a great story of that brand. And now it's widely available anywhere in any grocery store in the US. So I think you're right that there is opportunity for these regional flavors and varieties to grow and become available anywhere.
Yep, that's a great point. Consumers are looking for premium, and I think there's a strong parallel between craft brewing and baking, which both use a fermentation to develop the flavors.
So then if we look at product categories, do you think that there are specific categories that lend themselves more to premiumization? And so I'm thinking, is there a better market for premium sweet goods versus breads or other products?
I will say from my, again, personal experience, I don't have data in front of me. So from what I've experienced over the last 35 years, I would say sweet goods, sweet goods, cakes, cookies, cupcakes. I think they do have a broader appeal to consumers, and it can often, in most cases, command a higher prices for premium or artisanal versions. There's a local bakery. I love a lobster claw, sort of the classic with all the cream, and it's like $7 or $8 for just one small thing, but it's okay because it's an experience. It's premium to me. However, if there's also a market for premium breads, particularly for those, with, like we mentioned, high quality ingredients, traditional production methods, and unique flavor profiles. Ultimately, I think the success of premium products will come down to quality. And then, as we talked last week, quality, consistency of the product, regardless of the category. I think, bakers, if they want to look at it, they should focus on developing products that are unique, delicious, and made with premium ingredients, and then drive for consistency in the product line. Additionally, bakers can consider the local market demand and consumer preferences. I think it's important to know, like in the example of barbecue sauce, when deciding which products to focus on for premiumization. Understand your customers, and maybe they'll find out that in their region, people are more into the breads versus the sweet goods. But overall, I think a good quality artisanal ice cream, a good quality bakery with good product, people love sweets, and so do I. So
So do you think that there are specific products that are sort of paving the way? I am seeing croissants really have a moment right now. So are you seeing croissants sort of leading the charge with premium? Are you seeing any other specific products that are doing well?
I think croissants is definitely, America fell in love with croissants. And it's funny because I grew up with croissants. And as a side note, I talked to a lot of people in Europe and especially in France to see what's going on in the market. And there was a gentleman who found out that for the French, they're getting sort of tired of the croissants and the baguettes because they've had it all the time. So now that gentleman is bringing, if you heard, Martin's potato rolls
Uh-huh, yes.
all the way to France, and people are paying premium for it.
Wow.
Yeah, and now in France, in the U.S., we're paying premium for croissant. So sort of the world is is turning around. But focusing on the U.S., yeah, croissants, and what I see is a lot of the sourdough. I've seen it. I was when in Chicago during Baking Take. We've seen that James Bearder Ward baker making beautiful all sourdough based, no yeast, very simple type of. It's growing in popularity. And what I've seen is also as a trend other than croissant, brioche, as we've seen in the news. It's a lot of interest around like high quality brioche or brioche buns. And macaroons also, we mentioned La Durée last week. It's a good product that people love. And I think it's, as you said, it's a story behind it. You see smaller brands, but they're selling in grocery store or in different locations. Cookies, people will say sea salt or jalapeno. They're using or matcha shortbread. They're using very unique ingredients that you don't see every day and ingredients that are more expensive. Or cheesecakes or tarts, fruit tarts can also command premium prices. But overall, I think the key to success in developing premium baked goods is how unique are the flavors, how unique are the ingredients, and the sort of the production method, and one or all of the above. And it's offering different products than what consumers can find everywhere else. So that, to me, is what will create the demand for premium products.
Yeah, yeah. And you say, the experience. Last week, you mentioned how COVID sort of heightened consumers' awareness of health and wellness, also their mental and emotional well-being. And so it seems like people are making room for indulgent quality baked goods in their everyday diet. Even when they're focused on health and wellness, they're also focused on a really good eating experience. So I think it's giving premium baked goods sort of a moment because consumers are permissing themselves. They're focused on their health and wellness, but if they're going to indulge, people are going to spend the money on a premium item. Would you agree with that?
100%. I've helped a smaller customer in the state of Arizona. They do wholesale premium, and we created a keto bread. And the key to making a good quality keto is the cost of the ingredients is really unusually high compared to traditional baking. And they've put it there on the program. That's you're talking smaller. They started with 2 loaves per week. Now they're selling about 15 to 20 loaves per week at $12 per loaf. And it's remarkable that basically what I'm finding out, helping them with that, is if consumers, what I hear is consumers like it and they get repeat buyers because they're thinking they're getting a value, and that bread is unique enough that it's almost like personalized bread to be like, hey, I appreciate it because that's the bread I want. It's almost like gluten free. It's almost like we're talking about that premiumness, which is a nightmare for bakers. How can you appeal to everybody and be unique?
Achieving premium shine and color just got easier. Parado's Sunset Glaze makes it easy to give baked goods the premium look and long-lasting golden shine consumers crave without the need for eggs. As any industrial baker knows, glazing creates an eye-catching shine that consumers associate with freshness and quality. But working with a typical egg wash adds allergens and operational issues during production. Parados is here to help with Sunset Glaze. This egg-free, plant-based alternative is a consistent way to elevate the look of buns, rolls, croissants, and more. Plus, its dry touch application ensures flawless packaging and a long-lasting golden shine. Just spray, bake, and you're golden. Sunset Glaze. No eggs, no problem. Visit parados.us. That's PURATOS.us to learn more solutions for today's industrial baker. So I want to talk about channels for a minute. What are some of the things that bakeries should consider when they're creating premium products for different channels? So let me give you a couple of examples. How should a bakery consider premium bread production for a food service establishment versus a retail outlet?
So that's an excellent question. Creating premium product for different channels, they need to be considering the needs and expectation of the customers that dealing with in each channels that they want to go. For the food service, it's basically as what it is. It has to be a product that they can get it. It can be prepared quickly, and it's consistent in a small commercial type of kitchen setting. What are we thinking of? I think par baked breads, frozen dough that people can do themselves. It could be then it minimizes the waste. And work also, if it's in a food service, which I've done in my past, work closely with the chefs and the restaurant owners, because they're the one who will, in the food service, they'll take that bread and say, you see it in making when to get a burger, and burger was made with a local brioche bun made by so and so bakers, and they put it on their menu. So in those custom products that have to both fit the needs of the food service restaurant and also the bakery, the breads and pastry, to complement the restaurant menu. So it's a good, solid collaboration in my mind. And if it's on a retail outlets, I think bakers will have to focus more on the product that shelf life, if it makes sense, because then you have channels and distribution. It's sort of different. And artisanal bread loaves, again, that could be done frozen for retail outlets, and I've seen that you see some quality bread sold into the frozen aisle, or individually wrapped cookies or cakes, and maybe the shelf life, the distribution. That's what the local kid can help out. But packaging, I mean, and especially on the retail, something that is going to be eye catching, and also communicate to customers who are not used to the product that it's premium quality and you're willing to buy it. Bakers, they would need to focus on creating products that meet the needs and expectation of their channels they're targeting, and then while at the same time still maintaining the high quality and characteristic of their premium products. So it's a balancing act to do both. I think it's not just one size fits all. It's more like it's going to require some thinking through it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, wow, there are really challenges and benefits for retail customers and food service customers. I mean, on one hand, if you're producing for the food service sector, you have that opportunity to sort of ideate when you're product developing. You get to ideate with your customer and really dial it in. But on the same note, that's a lot of work, especially if you have several food service customers that are different types of channels, a fast casual versus a full service or white tablecloth. So then you have to sort of figure out how to be all things to all people and still produce at scale efficiently, whereas you don't have those specificities necessarily from customer to customer if you're selling into retail. But then you have to figure out how to be all things to all people with one or two product lines, right?
Yeah, and I've seen bakeries trying to do it all. And it's a big challenge because, as we talked last week, there's this training of the employees and what goes where. as a bakery owner, not me, but as with bakers, the way they make their money is, the good sellable units going out of the door, and make sure they have the proper shelf life. And that's a key, because if once you do premium, I think your waste is even more crucial.
Yeah.
It's tough to, as we talked last week, is the rethinking around, can I use my current line and do premium? Yes, but it has a lot of points around it.
Yeah. So, do you think that it's possible for a bakery to sort of build a roadmap for innovation in premium product development? If they can, what would you say that roadmap should look like? So, for instance, should bakeries be looking at the competitive landscape, or should they just be sort of responding to what their customers or consumers are asking for? Or is it possible to even sort of take the Apple or Tesla route and dive in with blind innovation and say, we're just going to do something that nobody has seen?
Good question. I see that the first thing that bakers should start thinking is know your local market and competitive landscape, and be able to identify any gaps and any opportunities for innovation in premium baked goods. What can you do different, and pay attention to consumer trends and feedback. Try to better understand, talk to your customers. What type of premium products would be most appealing to your current customers? Talk to them. They might say, hey, we want a multi-grain sourdough with who knows what they want. But in addition to that, bakers, you can take a more innovative and experimental approach by exploring new ingredients, techniques, flavors. I think each approach has risk, but in the innovative approach, who's leading your innovation? And is everybody aligned with the innovation? I've seen it many times. You come up with really innovative products, and then if you have a big team, people will say, no, it's too expensive. No, we can do it. You can't work your innovation in a silo. The example of Tesla, Apple, it's basically a core group of people who were thought leaders thinking of innovation first. So, and there was in New York, I've seen a bakery where they took an innovative approach to create premium, where now they're doing a croissant in a cube. This is almost like the Cronuts. They said, hey, we want to redesign the croissant. I got people who know him, who talked to him. He took years of research in order to perfect the product and train the employees around it. So that's the approach of innovation. It's great, but it's time consuming. And the bakery industry, has been, to me, relatively slow in terms of innovation compared to other food industries. And while, we're seeing a lot of advancements in technology, ingredients, I think we have still a lack of groundbreaking products and techniques being introduced, because again, we tend to be like, hey, we've been doing it this way, it works, why change things when it works? And I'm the devil's advocate here, and I'm like, yeah, they're right, but if you want to grow, we need to grow through thinking differently. And we need to invest in R&D, we need to invest in training the bakers, which will lead to creativity and innovation in product development. And the last point, I think the bakery industry, I go back to last week, we have a lack of real, master baker and trained bakers, like in the brewing industry, master brewers. And as we see the demand for premium baked goods growing, it is important to have bakers, with a solid foundation, with knowledge and skills. If not, we're just repeating the same thing. You can't take people who've played baseball for years and all of a sudden say, now we're playing football, because it takes time. And then how do we, as an industry, work together in scaling up production to meet the demand of premium?
Yeah. And I think once we unlock that, that is where the innovation is going to be unstoppable.
I've been working in bakery industry for 30 years in the U.S., and I believe wholeheartedly that it can be done on a commercial level, but it takes all parties at the table to say yes, we can. Because once we still think that, hey, we've been doing it one way and it worked really well, and again, I respect that, and I think it's fantastic. But it's, how can we change? And changes do not happen overnight. That it starts with communication, which we're doing now.
Right. Yep. I totally agree. Well, Richard, I think that is an awesome note to end on for this episode. And I am excited to look ahead to next week because we're going to start getting kind of technical with our upcoming episodes. And so first we'll look at how you choose the right ingredients and start looking at the formulating and R&D now that we've had these conversations around the market and the demand and the opportunities that are out there for commercial bakers. So I am excited to dive in next week.
Well, thank you for having me on your podcast and looking forward to next week and talking more about choosing the right ingredients. Thank you, Joanie.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Troubleshooting Innovation. And a special thanks to our sponsor, Parados Sunset Glaze. To learn more about this plant-based egg wash alternative, visit parados.us. That's PURATOS.us.